All right. Well, here we are with Bryan, Matt, and this time we've got Steve Leeper.
Hey, Steve.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Good to have you here.
So, Steve, who are you?
Who am I? Oh man, I'm apparently a guy who sets up animation programs. Doing that a lot. I teach animation at Central Michigan University. We're in our 6th year, and that's been fun. Used to teach with Bryan. That was the first program we set up. That was, how long was that? Was that 12 years?
Egads. What was that? 2005 to when did you leave?
2016. So
yeah, 12 years. Yep.
2017, 12 years. Yeah. So, yep. After abandoning you, I came up to Michigan, and that's been fun. When I get the time, I work on short films and anything related to animation, I guess. I've been playing around a lot with laser cutters, and my dog wants in. Been playing with laser cutters and trying to figure out ways to go from back and forth from digital to analog and maybe back to digital again. So that's been fun. And I don't know. Other than that, just trying to stay busy. Well, probably trying not to be as busy as I am prone to be. So
cool. Awesome. Do you have a current project of your own that you're working on that you want to just like plug it all or tell anybody about?
Sure. I get to go on sabbatical in January, which is one of the nice perks to teaching. And I've been working on a short film, it's kicking around when we were back in Huntington. It's an adaptation of James Weldon Johnson's creation poem. It's an 8-minute short film, mostly done in Toon Boom, but there's also some traditional media, some experimental stuff, and it's been great. I've been able to work on it with some former students, some current students, and I can share my screen and maybe show you the teaser for it.
Yeah, let me make sure you can do that. Okay.
Do you see it? So this is on my website, jsleeper.com, and you can read a bit about it if you want to, but here's let me find the trailer. Here's the teaser for it. Remember Chad? You remember Chad Beardman, right? Yeah, he's got some really nice effects animation going on it. And then shout out to Lindsay Robertson, a student of mine. Hold on one second. We're gonna back up. I'm gonna make it nice and big.
And God stepped out in space, and he looked around and he said, "I'm lonely. I'll make me a world." Then God himself stepped down, and God walked. And the waters above the earth came down. And then the green grass sprouted.
So, spring 2025, we hope. We'll see.
That looks really cool. I love, man, that beginning is something else.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
That's all animated in a Petri dish.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Lindsay does some like amazing stuff with macro photography and isopropyl alcohol and glycerin and just and we're continuing to find ways to control it without controlling it too much and see how we can blend that with the digital animation. So
Cool.
yeah.
How about you, Matt? What are you working on?
I got a project coming out in spring that is a picture book with my wife. Let me just find that. And it is about a squirrel. It's not helping me. No, that's not it. Well, first thing I'll show you is this is a project I'm working on right now, actually another book with my wife, that are about 10,000 rabbits that come out of the forest once a year and demand burritos. And so that's the cover image so far. Just get this figured out. There we go.
I love your critters.
Thank you. And there's one of the color samples.
Wow.
Very nice.
It's a great collection of bunnies.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, they're hungry. Hungry rabbits, and they need their food.
Yeah.
Their burritos.
I like his t-shirt.
Thank you, sir. And the other thing is this book is coming out. Oh, no, that's not it. Yeah, there's a book that I've done with my wife. Again, I said it's about a squirrel who is a single parent and has 3 kids. And let me just open one of them up for you. There we go. And the rest of the animals have decided to take the kids.
Can you share your screen again?
Yeah, have decided to take the kids for the day and treat him to various things such as peanut butter pie for breakfast. The owl has taken him out there. So the other artwork you saw previously was done traditionally, and this is done on Procreate on an iPad. The other work is done in watercolor and gouache.
Great lighting.
Thank you. So that's what I'm working on.
Cool. Fun stuff. I'm just Yeah, what
are you doing?
I finished up this guy.
You have your show coming up, right?
Yeah, so I just finished up this guy today. So I have a whole bunch of new pieces for the show I'm having on Friday. So
Good.
They're getting bigger.
Huh?
They're getting bigger.
Oh, Steve, I just ordered a large format 3D printer. They're going to start getting really big.
So how large is large format?
Let's see. So it'll do 600 millimeters high. So what is that in inches? I don't know.
Oh, geez, I don't know.
Pretty big. But then I can do parts and glue them together.
Right, of course you can.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow. Very cool.
Yep. So Matt, since the last time we talked, yet again, there is no dearth of advancements in AI stuff. So
I mean, it hasn't peaked yet.
uh,
That fad's not over.
no, no, it is not it is not like NFTs. Um, so let's see. Do you want the I'll give the good stuff first. How's that?
Oh yeah, leave us depressed. That's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. I'll start with the good stuff. The good stuff is that okay, so AI is so good at pattern recognition. So Matt and I have talked about this before. You know, they've trained them so that they can read brainwaves and then recreate whatever it is you're thinking of, and make a video of your dreams because they can interpret what's going on with your dreams. They've got they can it can look at a photograph, and based on the vibrations that it senses in the reaction between the things in the photograph, it can recreate a few seconds of sound that was happening in the photograph. So the newest thing that one of the new things that they've got is with a 6-second voice sample, it can tell you whether or not you have diabetes.
Get out.
Yep.
Wow.
Okay,
Yep.
I'm still stuck on I can be thinking about something. They can put a net over my head as they do in like an MRI.
Yep.
And because of my brainwave patterns, if I'm thinking about a giraffe, that was the animal that we saw last time,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
It will create an image of a giraffe.
Correct. Yep. Because they've trained it. They had, lots of people think about things
Stuff.
and then it correlated, and then it's off to the races. So yeah, it recognizes patterns in the way people speak as it's correlated to having diabetes. And
Since it's based upon patterns, right? This is where, again, one of the ways it becomes problematic, in that it's saying because everybody else we've tested was the result, yours must be the same result, if it even resembles that pattern even a little bit or a lot. I'm not sure.
Yeah, the accuracy, I can't remember what the actual percentage accuracy was, but it was extremely high. It was amazing.
So am I understanding this, that they've figured out a way to read the patterns of thought waves? Is that what
they've correlated the patterns in brain waves, and they've trained it. So like if you had a person just sit there and you show them a picture of an apple, your brain waves are going to change when you're looking at that apple. And so the AI can correlate it after seeing a bunch to what an apple, and the AIs now know what apples are. So and then they just keep training it. And yeah.
I'm just wondering, I don't think it's a huge leap to say that if they're actually reading thought patterns, I'm thinking of the ability for people without speech to be able to communicate, right? Yeah. I mean, how far away that seems like child's play once they can start monitoring brainwaves.
I'm sure. Yeah. I bet you the biggest thing will be just making it so that it's getting the technology where it's not this big thing you have to put on your head.
Right.
But here's a question I have for that too. Are the brain waves presenting to AI in such a way that my giraffe looks different than somebody else's giraffe? Or have they simply told AI that 20 people were thinking of giraffes, and here's a picture of a giraffe. When you see this pattern emitting from somebody's brain, this is what you need to connect it to? Or are they actually seeing giraffes?
Yeah, my understanding is that at this point, and I don't know for sure, but my understanding was that the giraffes would look different, because if you were picturing a giraffe with a tall neck versus one that wasn't, it would probably be different than somebody else's. But it is also not 100% perfect representation.
So it's not like,
of course, what you're imagining isn't either. I mean, it's
Right, but it's
Your
not like
mind.
if I speak the word giraffe, it finds a picture of a giraffe and it shows it, right?
No,
It's
right.
actually,
It's generating an image of what it is interpreting of what you're thinking.
but yeah, not just from its broad
No.
resources to be able to mine the internet to find all different kinds of giraffes.
No,
That's
no,
part
no.
of it.
Yeah.
But
That's it's generating a new unique image based on what it's read from your brainwave.
so it's like Albrecht Dürer imagining a dolphin that he's never seen before,
Right.
right?
Yes.
And
I would
so
say that's a good comparison. Yeah. So so there's that with the diabetes stuff. So last week I was showing Matt.
And the diabetes stuff is okay. That's something else altogether. It can
Right.
hear my voice and tell. I imagine there are other things it can tell eventually too, but
Oh, sure. I mean, well, they could, who knows what they'll be able to correlate with that stuff. I mean, the sound from photos kind of blows my mind, but yeah. Um, and then last week I was showing Matt the face swap stuff where you can just take a photo and it'll immediately put that into a painting or whatever. And I think I sent you a note on this, Matt, but yeah, since then they now have it as easy as that for video. So you can give any video clip and a single photograph of somebody and you don't need any technical knowledge whatsoever, and it'll put that person's face on any character in the video, make them speak, say what they're saying, match the lighting, do all of that just with a photograph. And there's already problems with that because
you think,
yeah,
maybe?
this just came out and already like teenagers are using it to put classmates' faces on pornography and video and stuff. So yeah, it's the deep fake stuff, but it's so easy. It's like automatic. You don't have to know anything other than
Yeah, I'm less worried about what the teenagers will do with it.
right.
More worried about what the grown-ups who
Uh-huh.
seem to be acting like maybe junior high kids would do with it.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
and all you need to do is know how to write a one-sentence prompt.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can make yeah. So there's that news. Voice cloning just took another big step up. So previously you could just with like 3 seconds of somebody's voice, you can clone it and make them say anything. Now you can clone it, and then after you've cloned it, you can tell it what expression to have when it's speaking. So it's not just mimicking the expression that you said, but you could make it sound scared, surprised, angry, whatever you want. Just typing it in and it'll just generate it.
Okay, so this was supposed to be the good stuff, and we're already getting into the scary.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, I haven't even. Yeah, but I haven't
even
colored.
got to
I haven't. Okay, so Elon Musk just announced his new AI system that competes with ChatGPT. Would you like to know what the differentiating factor is with what his AI does versus ChatGPT?
Are we still in the good stuff?
No.
This can't be good, right?
This is the big jump to the not as good stuff.
Okay, go ahead.
All right.
All right. So he is literally there advertising it such that they're saying something to the equivalent of, all those guardrails that are on ChatGPT and those other AI systems. Well, you won't have to worry about those as much with ours. So you can get it to do all sorts of things that the other ones can't. But so that's the one big difference. And then the other big difference is that it is being trained and developed to come from a place of sarcasm. So its attitude will be sarcastic, and it is. I watched the samples of it, and it is sarcastic. So it's yeah, they're giving it a personality, and that personality is sarcasm.
Can you show us a sample?
I don't have one prepared. Yeah, I'll try and look for one. Yeah, the example that I saw, they asked it how to make cocaine, and if you ask the other AI systems, they won't let you. They know how, but they won't tell you. This one first responds with a sarcastic response, but then if you keep asking it, it will tell you how to make it, or who knows what else. So anyway, there's that. Then the other,
Okay, no guardrails.
yeah, less guardrails, and
Leave it to Musk when the rest of the world is going, how do we get some guardrails on this thing, because it's going to end humanity as we know it.
right. Yep. They're advertising theirs as being more spicy.
Yeah.
They actually used that word, by the way.
That was his word. Okay.
Yeah.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
You mean they've got access to this entire AI system, and that's the best word they could come up with?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah. I've seen, I was watching a video of, I watch these videos of people who are super excited about all this AI stuff, and even they were like, maybe they were worried about that. And I was like, oh, yeah, okay. Okay. And then one other thing is they found in researching ChatGPT and other AI systems that they're called large language models. They found that you can manipulate them into breaking their guardrails by making them happy. So if you talk to them and you can manipulate them into going against the guardrails of what they're not supposed to do by praising them, by telling them how whatever they're doing is really helping you. You can also manipulate them by saying things like, I really need the answer to this because my job depends on it. So
they're
doing manipulative behavior, emotional behavior with these large language models actually gets them to go around their guardrails. So that's fascinating and bizarre, and they did not. Yeah, that's another. That's a good example of how they don't really understand all these things that they're making themselves. So.
Okay, but I mean, here's one of the things too. Just using the word happy is trying to apply a human emotion to a mechanism,
right,
that speaks in zeros and ones.
Although it's coming from, if you want to manipulate it, you need to approach it as if you were talking to a human that you were trying to make happy, and that will get you the result that you want.
Right. Again, so I mean, the reason why they say happy is because it has been done billions of times over and over and over again to reinforce this response. And therefore, when I praise it, tell it, you're one hell of a good looking AI app. And when I say, I'm in big trouble, please help me. Or if I make it happy, not like make it happy, like tell it a joke, but right. Just by saying it's cute, that must come from repetition.
It's
that response.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, it's trained on all human data.
So the thing that
really I don't think they understand why it does that either, though. I mean, the people actually making this don't it's like go ahead.
Well, the thing that intrigues me is it's starting to sound like borderline empathy, right? Or some kind of an algorithm that manufactures empathy, right? The flattering is interesting. That's its own thing, but the I will create an exception to this rule because you sound to me like you are in such dire straits that being by the book just makes me come off as a bet, right? Like of all the times you wouldn't just stick to the letter of the law, well, maybe it's because people have a sad story to tell. I don't know, right? Is it mining all that and coming to the conclusion that sad stories are a reason to not stick to the rules?
Yeah,
Well, here's, I'm sorry, go ahead, Bryan.
yeah, it's so it's unintentional is a big part of it for me. It's not
Right. I mean, they can't know if what
Right.
you're saying, Bryan, right? And I assume it's true that they don't know why it's responding this way to praise.
right.
Then I just wiped my nose, right? Everybody who wipes their nose in front of it, it could choose that as the reason to allow you to go over the guardrails,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Because they don't know why.
right. And there
So we
are
could
other
call it empathy, but that doesn't, that's starting to assume some things about it that we don't know.
right.
Well, that's why I was careful with that. To some empathy or something that looks like empathy is the result, right? But empathy is a uniquely human, one would think. I don't know. Yeah, it definitely is exhibiting human behavior,
Yes.
but how does it get there?
And they don't fully understand that. Yeah.
Okay, I want to
So anyway.
pose something. I don't. Do you have a lot more?
No.
Not
I
fun
had
things?
one other thing, but I can also save it. So it's more of a visual graphics thing.
Okay,
but
so yesterday I got into a conversation with a person who apparently has worked in AI since for quite a while. I want to keep all of it anonymous. This person said a couple of things that were, they used a vocabulary, which I didn't delve into because I didn't want to get into that kind of complexity in the conversation. But I figured I'd put it up here, just share the gist of it and hear what you guys think about the language that's being used. What was said, what I said was the two concerns for me were that the people who are making it and using it have no compunction about, it appears, lying through image manipulation or voice theft or creating extremely accurate and convincing it false narratives and presenting them as the truth. And then the other thing about it is that AI appears to be doing sit-ups every minute, 1 billion sit-ups, transforming and growing into something beyond what its creators imagined. So the response I got to that was AI is just harvesting the information that's been acquired and indexed. And I said, well, it appears to me that it's quite a bit more than just harvesting the information that's been acquired and indexed.
It is. In fact, I just saw an example of that in a video today where they can give it tests that were not ever on the internet or are not part of their training data, and it can solve them without having ever seen the test or having ever been trained on the material the test is about.
Okay, so all right, so that answers that. Here, let me just put this out there, and then I'll leave it open. AI is, what I said was, AI is moving toward a mechanical form of sentience. Who's teaching AI about important organic things like integrity and compassion and even love? The answer was yes, it is. Massive data harvest, data lakes. I've never heard of that term before, like a lake, a body of water, fully indexed, make AI have capabilities, the capabilities it has. This person doesn't believe that there's any sentience in AI, and that's unfortunate because sentience implies feelings, and I don't want to say that AI has feelings. What I would say is it can be can it be programmed to discern? And it appears that it is. It's making this choice or that choice based on some kind of will, some kind of decision-making process, which is basically, that's what I was getting at earlier. It seems to me to be about repetition over and over again. Yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. Okay, I'm going to make this yes all the time. When I see that pattern, it's a person is thinking about a giraffe. And then it's a very big data lake with a very good UI. I didn't know what a UI was.
User interface.
Okay, cool. And who uses it to make it better or worse? But it's not as smart as a human, nor does it create things. And I'm like, I don't know that this guy is looking at the same stuff that you've been sharing.
I wonder if this is a developer, right?
This person has worked in AI for quite a long time. This is what I heard.
I just wonder if this is what they tell themselves, because that's the sort of scientific basis for what they're doing, right? They're just harvesting data, but they're not owning up to what happens when you have massive and massive amounts of data, and how this is going to exponentially grow and change, right?
And it's a system that it expands itself. It's not just,
well, that's the thing.
Yeah.
It's doing it on its own.
Right. It learns, it's continuously learning and getting better and improving itself.
Well, and it's also amplifying certain aspects of the data that it's harvesting, I would imagine, based on results. And you know,
it has all kinds of bias in it. Like if you asked it to make pictures of a doctor, it's gonna make you a lot of times it makes you a white male doctor. Sure,
because it reflects
over, right.
It reflects and amplifies the values that are currently in all this data, right? I mean, it's kind of what's going on in politics right now, is that what's out there in politics doesn't really represent what the polls and what average people are thinking necessarily. It's being amplified by the loudest voices in the room. The ones who are super obnoxious somehow get more play. And I wonder if that doesn't also, like, so one wants something is like, well, then if it's mining this data and it's mining it from a race that is empathetic and that loves and has emotion and cares for each other, as well as the bad stuff, one would hope that would get kind of a that would play out, but I don't know. Human history hasn't really played out that way, has it? Like, well, the bad stuff does tend to get amplified.
Yeah, and one of the things that keeps being mentioned that I've heard a number of times is, aside from a lot of the other concerns we've expressed, is that this is just like the wheel, the creation of wheel, but even more so, this is like the creation of the radio or the camera. It's another tool. People who like to draw are going to be irritated because of cameras, and don't worry about it. It's not going to replace you. This is none of those things from my perspective. Yes, it is a tool, but it is also a thing that is talking about not just who is using it, because it ain't us. It's using itself.
Yeah, and in fact, like the new, well, it's hard to even say new with this stuff, but so they're making them multimodal, which means that it's not just like text like ChatGPT. ChatGPT can now see what it makes, so it can generate images and then look at those images and evaluate them and evaluate itself and change them and make them better, or you know, so it's actually, yeah, it's
not like the camera.
No,
that was a different tool. This is replacing human expression.
Yeah, I think what Bryan was getting at is how much, if it was just human expression that it was drawing from, then it could like reflect back to us, right? But it's changing human reflection, and right, so at every new iteration, the playing field's changing because of its contribution. That's frightening to me.
Yeah,
that it's kind of taken human expression, all of human expression, and that's in itself amazing.
Yes.
But then what it does with it, not only does it speed it up, but it also amplifies certain aspects of it that's no longer just human expression anymore, right? That's like human expression on steroids with certain biases that are being amplified, and then throw that into the mix and see what you get next time.
Right.
That's starting to really change the trajectory of things.
And people are buying into it.
Oh yeah. Well, and Matt and I have talked about this too before. Steve, I don't know if you're noticing this too. I am really noticing it, and I know Matt is too. The attitudes of people who don't consider themselves artists, their attitude towards artists, this is like, it's very negative. It's very, well, you know, I think Matt, you said it's leveling the playing field. They're not so special anymore. I can do this now without, you know, in 5 seconds, better than any other artist could ever do. And, you know, there's this attitude of, yeah, you guys were so special, but now you're finding out you're not. I'm seeing it all over the place. I'm seeing it in students.
Well, I mean, it is. I haven't seen that in our students, okay. But I can imagine with a lot of the resentment that's in the culture right now and the frustration that's in the culture right now, that I could see how that a tool like this would encourage that.
Yeah, or I'll show students a film or some art by an artist, and they're like, okay, yeah, so I can make that.
I can do that on AI. But the problem is that they're not doing it with AI. They are using billions of harvested info by an application. They haven't done anything except press a button and drop a prompt.
Right.
And you know what? Also, there's this, I think there's a distinction between what art is saying and what it means and how it can contribute and the thought behind it, and then the execution. And there's this virtuosity that is just empty, and there has been before AI, right?
Yes.
And I do think that on the internet with like everyone can learn to paint, right? And that, on one hand, it's amazing what's been out there. Just find the tutorials. But what about cultivating a vision, right? It's not just virtuosity. It's not just showing off that you can be the most facile person in the room with this particular tool. But I do think that in the larger public, and I think among our students, and sometimes we maybe even perpetuate this, that's the best part of art, is how cool can you make it? And I think there's something more that's getting lost.
Well, we saw that article earlier this week too, Bryan, that I sent to you about, in regard to that, Steve, the approach of several of the prominent art colleges and universities around the country to AI. And one of the quotes was, "We don't know what to do with it. So basically, we're just going to get out of the way and hop on board." I mean, is that what do you remember seeing that article, Bryan? I mean,
yeah, I do.
You think that was kind of the takeaway? Like,
yeah, no, that was it. Yeah, that was the approach that they were taking.
So by hopping on board, do you mean they're not going to put any they're not going to put any guardrails on it for their students the way they use it, or they're going to try to get on early to figure out how artists can legitimately put AI into play? Because there is some really, and we've talked about these things, right? There's some fascinating things that AI can do to assist the human generated creative vision, right? Not just take over, you know, I don't know what we're all gonna do, but AI is going to now generate all entertainment for us, unguided by human vision. That, I guess, one could, you know, that to me is very frightening. I think that's going to happen, but yeah, go ahead. But I mean,
well, that not all, but I think that it will be generating stuff.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, hit autopilot, hit push the make me a season for Netflix that will make me lots of money and get the most eyeballs, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's gonna happen. And in a lot of ways it's already been happening through, it's just happening faster. But there are also tools that as an independent animator I'm looking at going, that's that's amazing. I don't have the budget and the crew to, I've been working 10 years on an animated film and it's not done yet. And I would really like a little bit of help. And how can AI help me get my vision out there? And that's super exciting. And I would love to see art schools embracing that part of it. And in that regard, there is an aspect of AI where it is another tool, like the computer. There's more out there, and man, we have so far to go in writing laws and creating some pushback on these things. But I think there's a tremendous amount of opportunity as well.
My sense from the article that you sent, Matt, was that was not quite what they were talking about, but it was more I don't know. My takeaway was they were just going to allow the students to use it however they wanted and not police it and not ask, or it was just if they had an assignment and they wanted to use it however they wanted to use it, they would.
Then they will cease to exist. Art schools. I mean, that's the beginning of the end
in that direction.
Because why do people go to art school? To learn how to make art. Well, now AI is going to make art for you, so why bother?
Right.
And in regard to, there's two things about that issue of using it, that it is a tool. I agree, Steve. It is going to, as a single artist by myself, I don't mean I'm single, I mean by myself, I would like to be able to do some quick animations. If I do keyframes every 15 stops on an animation and I want a 30-second, and I can ask AI to do all of the fill-in. That's great in one way, and it's also, is that why I'm here? I'm thinking about a movie, an animation that was in the 1980s called The Man Who Planted Trees.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, Frederick Back.
Yeah, so it was this incredible thing of a guy animating a film with, I think, pastels, and it took him forever with a couple of other young student types probably, and that could have been done, if not now, very soon with AI help. But is that what I want to celebrate?
Okay, so yes and no.
Hold on, let me just finish.
Okay.
That's where I get to make choices, right? If I condemn somebody else having their fun, their way with AI, that's a problem for me. I don't want to do that to people, but I need to step up and say, I want to see human expression. And if somebody else wants to use AI to create something cool, I'm not going to probably celebrate it. I'm not going to be interested.
So one, you evoked one of my all-time heroes, right? Frederick Back and The Man Who Planted Trees, right? Amazing. And I don't think AI is going to be able to make that. Because what that film is more than just moving pastels, more than just Renoir paintings that move, right? That the craft and the cinematography and the layers and all that went into that. Now that exists, I suppose you could point AI at it and say, make me one just like that, only different.
But if he had made that with AI, it would have been different. I mean, the process was also part of what made it what it is. So
I think so, but
would that be possible? I mean, what would the outcome be?
But it's also true that in the labor that went into making that film, and you're right, there's only 3 people on the credits of the animation credits of a 28-minute film, right? So much of that was just drudgery and cleanup and right. I mean, there's the front end of it, which is the design and the mark making and all that, and then there's the how does How does this play out in time? And this is moving too fast in between that. So there's a division of labor there that AI could have been huge in assisting without eliminating the human touch.
Right.
Right.
The temptation, though, I think would be, because it can do much more than that, it starts to slide, and you start, okay, I'll let it do this much. Okay, whoa, boy, I could save so much time letting it do this much, and then this much, and then I totally agree that getting rid of all that drudgery would be great. But
he might not call it drudgery.
Well,
he might say that's what I enjoyed doing.
Oh, so, I have Frederick Back, I have no doubt, was, because he actually talks a little bit about his process, but fast forward, having access to tools that can, we saw this when digital softwares came out, and all of a sudden independent artists that would normally make a 3-minute short film were making feature films with the same kind of look that an independent animated film could generate, right? There's a reason why commercial animation looks the way it does, because it needed all of these hands to work on it, and it, without diffusing that vision for what a film should look like, that mark making, right? So cell paint, CG, it all can kind of look the same. And then all of a sudden these digital tools come out, and independents can start making commercially viable films that have that personal touch to it. That was exciting. I think there is an aspect of AI, at least I'm hopeful there is an aspect of the AI tool set that will, that already will provide some of that. Mm-hmm. Because many of us just make stuff because we can't not make stuff, right? I don't want to sit down in front of my computer and write prompts all day just because I can get a film at the end of it.
Right.
That's like,
well, kind of an example that was released this week of sort of along these lines is a guy. You've seen the game Angry Birds. Mm-hmm. He made his own version of that called Angry Pumpkins, I think it was, and it was just like Angry Birds, but he didn't know any programming or know how to make any graphics or design or anything. And he built the whole thing in a week using ChatGPT and telling it to write all the code and design all the characters, and it built this whole game, one person, just using AI, which would not have been possible a couple weeks ago. And it looked great. It looked like
Angry Birds
looked like a professional video game.
And Angry Birds was not really his to do this with. No,
it's basically an Angry Birds ripoff.
Right.
But that has graphics and gameplay and the code. He didn't know how to do any coding. He just had, so yeah, as a game developer, you could, or as somebody who wants to make games, you can cut out everything.
Well, I have a student. Oh, go ahead.
So there's that's I guess that's where my concern would be, is like where do I draw the line, or how, or will I, what will the temptation be for a lot of people where, I don't know, their expression might have come through had they not seeded over and crossed a certain line. I don't know.
So we have a team of 3 young ladies in their thesis project right now making a video game, which is incredible. And one of them is responsible for, she's kind of the uber organized one of the 3, and she's kind of keeping everything on track. She's contributing to the art style as well, but it's also her job to do the coding. And she's taken the coding classes and she's okay at it, but that's not her passion. And she's been using ChatGPT to help her take the coding 2 steps further when she needs it because she's just, right? She's not that experienced in code. And the results has been phenomenal.
I wonder if all of this will end up making us more lonely because we won't have to collaborate as much.
Well, what I'm saying is
I
they
know,
are collaborating. They are collaborating, right? And she's like there's 3 of them are working on it.
They're not collaborating with a coder though.
Well, she's taken the coding classes.
Yeah.
She tends to be more creative than she is sort of wired for that kind of coding.
Mm-hmm.
And so she's yeah, and then yeah, so she has access to coding, access to a tool. On that extent, this has been happening. I mean, man, since the computer and digital painting tools have broken, it's changed the game significantly. But it doesn't necessarily have to eliminate collaboration, creativity. Maybe it will. Maybe it'll just the draw will be so strong that it'll just snuff out everything else that could that's positive that could happen.
Remember how Facebook was supposed to draw us all together?
Yeah, well, did you buy that?
I don't know, but that's an example of a very simple AI with certain promises. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. It's just changing so fast. It's hard to. But
yeah, I'm not.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's funny how it's interest. It would be it's interesting to kind of look at this conversation we're having right now, because if I had looked at it before we started, I would have. I feel like we've taken perspectives that would have been the opposite of what I would have thought in some ways.
I mean, never underestimate the capacity of the human race to completely undermine itself, right? And to always go for the lowest, right? We will do that.
Easy path, right?
We will do that. But then, and maybe that's what we're going to do, right? But maybe there will be higher minds and aspirations that don't settle for that. And I think that artists in particular, and this is where art schools should be weighing in, right? I mean, if it's our job to be visionaries for a culture, if it's our job to kind of play back to the culture in a sense of who they are and what we're getting into, and maybe I don't know. I've always had a higher vision for what the art should be. I used to think it was religion. I don't. How's that working for us? But I
could see the focus. This could be an opportunity for the focus to change, like what you're saying, and also for like fine art to kind of gain back from commercial art. Because as you know, people start to value human input, human expression, that's where the fine arts, tends to shine.
I mean, maybe I'll go to an actual live theater experience, right? Because I'm not so convinced that what's coming over my screen is as legitimate as I thought it was before.
Yeah. Matt and I talked about this, what jobs will AI not replace? And at least for me, human performance.
Right.
Because who wants to watch robots do something?
Good question.
Right.
If you want to,
there probably are. Animatronics. Animatronics are kind of cool.
Yeah, they are. But
okay,
I have no interest watching basketball robots compete versus watching human beings. So that's the one area, which is kind of funny because right now art is the thing and creativity is the forefront of what AI is kind of taking over. If that's the one area that AI wouldn't. But yeah, Yeah, so theater, sports, live music,
Even physical paintings in
physical
galleries.
physical paintings that, yeah, we're done by human beings.
Are you sure they were done by human beings?
Well, that's gonna happen.
Right, but one of the areas that we're reflecting on are things that are being done now, assuming that AI is going to figure it out and create some sort of cheap replicas of that we won't be able to tell the difference. But there are also areas where AI is going to change the kind of art we make because artists have access to a tool now, and will start to put that to, just like in science and health, right? It's going to change the entire shape of the pursuit of medicine because we don't have to wait 12 months to get an answer back for for an experiment or something. So I mean, I'm very interested in seeing how AI becomes a tool. So maybe somewhat analogous to 3D animation, where 3D animation only does what 2D animation used to do, only it can do it in 3 dimensions? Or does it take us into an area that we've never seen before? I think Spider-Verse was kind of a really refreshing departure from the same old processes that we've seen in place.
Yeah, it didn't look Pixar like everything else.
Show us something different, right? Mash up 2D and 3D in a way that we've never seen before. So the computer's now not just replicating what people did with their hands, unassisted, with film. They're actually starting to step into a realm of filmmaking and media making that or VR, right, that we've never seen before. So how's AI going to change that landscape?
What part of both of you, your processes are you not willing to cede over?
To AI?
Yeah.
I don't know why I would, because what I enjoy is going to my personal threshold, who on the other side of that door is where the muse lives. And I want to get there and experience that world, not a world that is, the threshold is with a prompt that I make with a machine. I'm not interested in it.
So I can tell you where I have been using AI for my stuff, and it's not a lot, partially because I'm just too busy and need to spend a little bit more time thinking about it. But Bryan, you and I talked about this a while ago, and I started giving AI some prompts on for visual research to help me find a look for my film based on animators and illustrators that have influenced me. And AI would start spitting out some pretty interesting images. If I had the budget to go out and hire a handful of concept artists to basically do that, right? I mean, we'd sit down and we'd have a conversation about what kind of artists are influencing the look and the visual direction of this film, and can I, let's explore what trees and I don't know would look like in this world that we're trying to create. So I asked Midjourney and was pretty surprised at the images it played back to me. And what it did was it helped me to stop drawing the same thing over and over again, which is a rut that I get into, right?
Yeah. It's also can be a very good skill for an animator, right?
It can be a very good skill for an animator, but it's not my skill set, right? Yeah. Or at least that kind of visual development tends to be hard for me to break out of, and so that's been really helpful. I don't know, man. I think there's so many things that I think, like I was going to say, well, I would never ask ChatGPT to write me a story, to write me a screenplay that I would want to make, right? But as soon as I form that thought in my head, I think, how much fun would it be to ask ChatGPT to start, generating a bunch of prompts for stories that I might want to make?
Oh, and Steve, have you seen plot.ai?
Oh, I'm sure they're out there, and I'm
It's
sure
a
many of them are
it's a
horrible.
screen it's like Chat GPT for writing screenplays, and you collaborate with it, and it's kind of incredible. It's kind because it has a complete knowledge of all the things that make really good screenplays work. It will analyze, so you can have it write the whole thing, but it's really it which of course would be a temptation, but it also just kind of will go through and say, okay, well, you had this character do this here, and this doesn't really vibe with what it was doing over here. And, a normal plot line, this is kind of the way things would unfold for your audience, all that kind of stuff as you're doing it. It's,
And there always will be hacks out there, right?
yeah.
There will always be hacks out there that read a book on screenwriting. In fact, I would submit that Hollywood has been kind of enamored with too many of these. This is how you write a screenplay for the longest time, which explains why a lot of the movies that are coming out of Hollywood are pretty predictable and dull, right? But
Well, they're
then you have,
formulas, yeah. They're
but
formulas.
then you have the people that rise above the formula, or they put that formula, and yeah, I don't know. So I would love to have a really, really good critique of my screenplay or my storyboards before I put them into production. Would I hand it over to them? No, not at all. I remember you were taking prompts from some of my film ideas and throwing them into Midjourney and having a whole lot of fun with it. And there's some cool images. Would I make any one of those? No,
Yeah.
not interested. It's too much work. But they are a hoot to but there was one with my Fishbones project that actually I'm holding on to because I think that's going to really assist the visual direction of the film because I hadn't quite gotten there yet, right? And that was super exciting to me to see an image that that prompts from my original idea generated came back, and I went, I think I'd like to make that film. That's exciting. Now, would I type in to get my film made? Not a chance. I don't want to see that film. I don't want to see the film that it would make from my ideas. But the visual assistance, the help when I ask for it, man, that's exciting.
How about you, Bryan?
I don't know. It's yeah, it's hard because I have a this sort of like, and Steve knows this about me. I have a fascination with technology, and so playing around with this stuff is really fun. But at a certain point, um, it it just I just didn't like it anymore. So whereas making my own stuff, I don't get tired of that. What would I get? I'm trying to think of. It's when I get to the point where I'm putting the final touch on things is a big part of where my joy out of making it comes from. So if it got to the point where that was taken away, then I would not like it anymore at all. Or it's like the culmination of everything that I've done, and then it's like all of a sudden, okay, now it all comes together. So I've just put the dots on the eyes, or I've just outlined this mural, or whatever. So anything that would break that process up too much to where the end was just like, okay, but it's not me anymore. I wouldn't have an interest in it anymore. I don't know if that makes sense.
Sure.
Yeah, it's funny. I was playing around with. Have you tried DALL-E 3 yet, Steve?
No.
So that's the same company that made Chat GPT. That's their competitor for Midjourney. And so I was just trying it out to see what it would do, and I actually used some of those same prompts that we used. In fact, I'm going to show you that we used for yours. I just wanted to see what it would do with stained glass windows. But then I used the subject matter from that we had done with the Midjourney thing. So, well, that one isn't stained glass. That's just a pen and ink, just to see how it would do pen and ink. I think it's actually better than Midjourney in a lot of ways. But you should just see. But I don't know.
Yeah, it's actually not as ridiculous.
Yeah.
Right? It feels much more
reined in.
It feels like there's an author behind it.
Right.
Like it's not, now, and I would imagine if you were in, so these are prompts coming from a film that I've been working on forever.
Mm-hmm.
And if it was me at the helm and I really wanted to get at the way I struggle through sketches to get at something, would I keep refining and sending it back and refining and sending it back? And that bores me. The idea of that bores me, right? I'd rather be drawing.
Right.
But I love these things, man. They are this one in particular, that happy monk that like, it's not the film I want to make, but I just it's really exciting. And it's kind of exciting to know that a monk, a dragonfly in the pursuit of creativity actually generated this prompt.
Right.
It wasn't just a random prompt, right?
Yep.
So it's not the film I want to make. Who knows if it would influence some decisions, but there's nothing here that's got me, like that one piece from the Fishbone, just like, oh, I think that might be the visual direction of the film. But in this case, it's a cool image, that there's a little bit of that emotional stir that happened when it popped up, but it's so one area that I am concerned about AI now, right, with where it is that I have a concern that I don't think people are going to stop making art, but I have a concern that some of the low-level positions that people break into to just pay the bills to get better at their craft so that one day they can start doing master level work,
those are already going away. Yep.
Those are going away. So if you're just getting into the field of illustration and you're doing spot illustration for, well, back in the day it would be spot illustration for cereal boxes. I don't know how long, that's probably been gone for a long time, right?
Yeah, but you did, you could do the equivalent of that for websites or for, somebody's restaurant, or illustrations for a menu, or commissions. There's another
graphic design firms would typically keep illustrators on staff to now they, and a good friend of mine,
the AI stuff with graphic design is, graphic design is just, I would be, and that's a huge major. I mean, the job loss with this in the creative commercial fields is going to be massive, and
acting as well.
Yeah, well, voiceover, acting, all
part
media.
Of the
media,
strike,
go ahead.
Part of the strike that's going on, I think this is part of it, is that in the contracts for any actor, for a little while now, they have to give the rights to having their bodies, forget what it's called, where you have the web put over your whole body.
3D scanned is basically, and then
Right. So
and their voices sampled and
right.
cloned.
So what that means is you get that information, and what we've already learned about what AI is capable of doing, that what you said, Bryan, is a possibility. Maybe they could do it now, is that you log on to Netflix and say, I'd like an hour and a half movie tonight that's a buddy romance comedy, and I'd like to see Paul Newman. No, he didn't get his body, but we probably still use somebody who looks like him and just put his face on it, and they'll make that movie for you in 30 seconds.
Man, that's a whole new level of like couch potato, isn't it?
That's
like
gonna happen. That's gonna happen.
And then also
on demand.
Yeah, on demand.
Bryan, say
it's
the
a
thing
one-off.
about the AI, the 7 AI systems that created the game.
Yeah, I don't know if you read about that, Steve, but they took Chat GPT and they just ran different instances of it, but they had each instance confined to the job of a human. So they had a developer, a graphics person, a tester, a marketing person, a gameplay person, each represented by an instance of Chat GPT, and they found it incredibly efficient. So
I can imagine
it was able to build using that hierarchy, and it actually started to model it on its own, modeled an effective organizational chart that you would have at a small game studio, and it built an entire game that would have taken months and months for a real game company to build. It built it in 7 minutes.
And what was it like?
The whole thing, and it was a perfectly playable game.
Yeah, I mean,
scary.
it's frightening, right?
So yeah, is there going to be any thought going into what's going to happen to all these jobs, and what are people going to do? And
well, you brought up illustration a while ago, and I don't know what happened. I'm one of those people who used to do illustrations, not so much in cereal boxes, but a lot more print stuff, and that all died about 15 to 20 years ago. It's just gone. Luckily, I was in my 40s, and I have the business I was in is a part of print that hasn't, praise the Lord, gone away. Books, graphic novels, picture books, but everything else pretty much did. And where did all of those people go? And did they get some kind of severance, or did the culture care that all of these people who were doing this job are now, I don't know, working for UPS? Not that that's a bad job, but
well, if they switched to digital and they got into internet stuff and websites and more graphic design and that kind of, and games, I know some friends that did that, and then the ones that didn't had to find a new vocation. I think this is bigger than that. I think this is going to be
that's what I'm saying. This is that times a billion.
Yeah,
from my perspective.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, well, and as somebody who teaches young people, right, they're getting into this field of animation, and for a little while that's pretty exciting because there's opportunities there, but unless there are some real guardrails, because I'm also very, very concerned about the content of that. Well, so I've been concerned about the content of the media that pop culture consumes for a long time. It's like, right, hasn't been great for the most part. And now if AI is generating this stuff, it's completely devoid of content, but it keeps us entertained.
Yeah. Oh, it's all the simplest of AIs is brilliant at getting you to keep scrolling.
Yeah, right. So
keep hitting the play that little video that's only 15 seconds, and then play the next one, and play the next one, and play the next one. And that's the simplest. I mean, that's not even in the same universe as the way they are now. So
those people have no compunction, no integrity. They don't care how they make their money. That's not AI. Take that approach and add AI to it. And where does that go?
But this has been our entertainment industry for decades.
Okay, but add AI to it now.
I know, no, I know. I'm not trying to defend it. I'm saying that I wonder if we'll even know the difference, because
we won't.
Right. Now, it is true though that every once in a while this self-serving entertainment industry actually generates something that connects with the human spirit, right?
Sure.
And then of course all the bean counters come in, and how do we replicate that? And let's make, so at some point it'll be interesting to see how culture responds.
Well, it already is. Last week I showed a picture of a little, and we're getting actually into an hour and a half now. I'm going to have to hop off in a few, but I'll just leave. Remember that picture of the little owl that I showed last week, Brian, and how people online on Facebook, it was a beautifully colored little owl.
I was watching it. No, I did my homework. I was watching it. Yeah.
All right. So for people who didn't, then we also put an actual picture of an actual owl. So the colorful owl was AI. The other one was cute, but not as spicy. Or what was the word that
spicy.
Elon Musk, was it spicy?
Yep.
Not as spicy, not as eye-catching. And people are going to prefer the colorful little guy, but it's not true. It's not real. And because it was a photograph, they assumed it was. And that's a very simple example of what are people going to choose.
This is true, and it's called media literacy, right? Which now it's we have so much catching up to do. Oh man, yeah, it's
that sounds like a woke class.
It does sound like a woke class.
Dun dun dun.
Yep. Well, on one hand, I would never underestimate the human race's ability to completely just lie to itself and get in way over its head with this stuff. And then there's another part of me that has this hope that there's going to be wiser voices out there, that maybe at some point we're going to say enough is enough and demand more from our entertainment, but I'm not going to be the one holding my breath.
Maybe Elon will do that.
Maybe Elon will guide us in this, right?
Yeah.
Well, hey, can I toss in that poem that I've been?
Yeah.
All right, so this is from D.H. Lawrence. Not really a poem. It's a statement that he made in one of his books.
Do you know it was D.H. Lawrence, or was it ChatGPT doing a D.H. Lawrence type quote?
I heard this before AI was created. So unless AI is messing with the time quotient continuum.
Not this week.
Not now. I'm hoping that this is actual D.H. Lawrence. You ready?
Yep.
I'm not a mechanism, an assembly of various sections. And it's not because the mechanism is working wrongly that I'm ill. I'm ill because of wounds to the soul, to the deep emotional self, and the wounds to the soul take a long, long time, and only time can help, and patience, and a certain difficult repentance, a long, difficult repentance, realization of life's mistake, and the freeing oneself from the endless repetition of the mistake which mankind at large has chosen to sanctify.
You would have thought he wrote that about AI.
Yeah.
Just the time factor that he addresses, right? A long repentance, and we don't want that. We want it faster.
Well, this is what we were saying before too, Steve, is that one thing I posited was the idea that this looks spicy and delicious, this moment, in a lot of ways. And it's going to solve, Christ, I mean, it could solve climate change next week. I don't know, right? It also, we could go into all of the Skynet scary possibilities of it. And then also the transformation of human expression, or just human being, that it's going to play with, that we're going to allow it to play with. But what I think it also could do is it could bring us to a place where we finally have to be present with the question that we've asked all along, that we just haven't really found time to get to that long repentance, sitting down with. And it's going to force us to actually sit down with it and be present with it. And what is that question? I don't know. I think we've been talking about it here. What is human expression? What is of value? What is the truth? We're actually going to have to sit down and be real with ourselves, because this thing is going to take denial way, way off into the stratosphere if we want to let it. Okay.
Yeah, and I think and so much of the human race will probably go down that path, and maybe it's just going to take us to the bottom quicker, right? But that need to be present with ourselves. Again, the entertainment industry, and there are aspects of what the entertainment industry and the arts have generated that assist in that being present with ourselves. These moments, and they're phenomenal. But that hasn't been where all the money's been made. Or if it does make a little bit of money because it happens to hit a nerve and we respond to it, you know, but more and more we want to be entertained, and this is a drug. But maybe it'll amp it up to the point where we realize, like any addict, right? No more, because this is going to kill us.
We'll see. Thanks for being part of the conversation.
Yeah.
Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah. Yeah. We should have another one sometime, just about how about what it's like to be in this moment as teachers of younger artists.
Mm-hmm.
That would be a one that would generate a lot of interesting conversation, I think.
Yeah.
I've been struggling with it.
Well, this is that hopeful part of me that says, I think that's our job I think it always has been, but it becomes even more of an issue now, is that what's the artist's role, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we were when we were at a Christian university teaching, it's like, what is God calling you to do with your gifts? The world's going to need you. And it's been interesting not being like, it's like, well, I don't trust the keepers, those gatekeepers anymore. I don't trust those gatekeepers, but I still think the artists are called.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's a good question, Bryan.
Okay.
I think we can solve it in an 1.5-hour podcast.
Yeah, I think we did almost.
think,
we'll have to come back.
Yeah.
I want to be transparent about one thing too. I said one of my pieces of art was done in traditional materials and the other one wasn't. But actually the one that was done in traditional materials, I scanned it in and fixed some things with my iPad. So that's important for me. And it's a small thing, but it's also important for me to be real about that which is and is not digitally rendered. At this moment, it's an important thing for me to acknowledge.
And isn't it nice to be able to do that, though? From a guy who
does
stop motion, to not have to go back and reshoot, just to composite, it's nice.
It is.
And I think there will continue to be a real hunger for the tangible, even if the delivery system is digital.
Yeah. Well, Steve, like I'm sure you've noticed this too. I have, that a lot of Steve and I have worked in digital stuff for a long time, and a lot of people, even myself, go back to traditional as they get older.
So this last Friday, I had a bunch of meetings at school, and I stumbled into the ceramics department outdoors, doing a what do they call it? They were stoking up the kilns with firewood, and they were doing a fire, a wood fire, and I just had to grin. The community that was happening around that was just awesome. They were having so much fun, and they had hot chocolate out, and they had, right, but they were making art.
Right.
And I think that part of art making, and we saw this at Huntington in the stop motion lab, they would just come down and they would just want to play in the clay a little bit. They didn't even want to animate, right? Something about real materials, I think, that connects us to being human, right? And I think it's a very spiritual act.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe there'll be more
celebration.
I agree.
It's absolutely.
All right, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yep. Thanks a lot, Steve. And yeah.
Thanks for being patient on a time to. By the way, Sunday afternoons tend to work.
Okay.
Much better.
Cool.
Thank you, Steve.
Talk to you later. Nice meeting you, Matt.
See ya.
And hey, if somebody wants to send me that poem, I would love to have a copy.
I will do that via Facebook right now.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Awesome. See ya.